I'd ask you about like customer, because you started talking about like pulling back the curtain for the benefit of like educating customers, but then you started talking about the advocacy side of
Right.
things, and it's like, how did that transition happen? Why customers first?
Right. Okay. So the customer thing started just because we felt like that was the biggest need at the time, and also understanding scope. Right. Like at the moment, that was what was directly affecting us. And then as you get into these things, you realize that
It's like triage.
yeah,
Yeah.
it truly was. That's what it felt like. But so it was a natural thing. We started with customers, and then we moved into this more political facing situation. And as I said, Joanna was like very plugged into that and kind of was like, hey, you have to start talking about this. I used to be very, very happy to be behind the scenes. I wanted to open my bar, run my bar. I didn't want to talk to news outlets and to all these other things, which ended up being a lot of what I have done. But just
Hmm.
it was very eye opening to me to throw myself into politics. I've always voted.
Okay.
I've always voted.
Right.
Um, but I feel like when you're younger, you don't really, unless you're like a poli sci major, understanding the way that government works is overwhelming and exhausting. And I also think that's why a lot of people stay out of
Yeah.
it, right? Um, and hospitality is huge. You have hotel bars, beer bars, cocktail bars, fast casual. I mean, if we're talking about food or eating and drinking establishments, Chipotle is in there. And it's like there's not a one size fits all for every single facet of our industry, which is why it's very hard to organize everybody because everybody has such different
Yeah.
needs. And, it's like when
Yeah.
we're talking about government bailouts, well, all the airlines function pretty much the same. You can't say that about hospitality. We function so differently. And
Right.
so trying to get a band-aid for everybody needs their own size band-aid. Um,
Hmm.
so and trying to get politicians, most of which have never worked in hospitality, to understand what our needs are and then be like, by the way, these are my needs, but there are 25,000 other eating and drinking establishments in New York City, and these aren't their needs. And trying to
Right.
represent them is hard. Um, but
Yeah, so what was your first like thing that you did when Joanna was like, you need to start talking to these people? Like did she was she just like, you gotta talk to this guy or this lady or this person?
honestly, I don't know because for the first year, I think every time I got on camera or a Zoom call, I blacked out. Um, because of nerves. I was so nervous. And
Yeah,
I was always people don't care what I have to say. Um, at least that's how I felt. But
that's what you
it
thought.
was
Yeah.
just like practice and practice and practice. And it's funny still. I testified like a couple months ago at City Hall against Grubhub because now I do all this extra stuff,
Hmm.
which we'll get into. And I got up there and I spoke in front of city council. I waited 7.5 hours to speak. So by the time I was up there ready to talk, I literally had, you should see my notebook. It had changed so many times because you also only have, I think it was 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes max, or maybe it was 2 minutes.
Oh man.
So you're under a time constraint and you're like trying to make these people remember what you have to say. Um, and I got up there, I spoke, and I get down, and the executive director of the Hospitality Alliance, Andrew Ridgie, is the best person ever, texted me. He's sitting next to me, and he's like, "You crushed it." I think I teared up a little bit, and I was like, "That's great." I have no idea what I said. I was like, "I'm so glad that you think that," because I don't remember, because it just
Oh
my
man.
mouth just takes off, which I guess is a good thing sometimes. Ask my boyfriend in other situations, um, but yeah, it was just like practice, and I think that's like kind of where I wanted this conversation to go, was like we're constantly trying to activate people and be like, people do care.
Hmm.
And the thing I've realized is like, and I hate it, it's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease or the oil or whatever, and it's true. It's really true.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, especially in hospitality, because we're people pleasers, um, they don't want,
We have to be,
I mean, we have, exactly,
you
we're
know.
conditioned to do that. But I think a lot of people don't want to
Yeah.
make trouble or they don't want to make noise. And I mean, that's literally how I felt. It was even when we started going to these, like, Brooklyn Democrats Christmas party to meet people, to meet Gail Brewer, who's a big supporter of hospitality. Like, even getting up, she's being surrounded by humans, like literally flanked on all sides. How do you go in there and go, "Hey, I know you just met 15 people, but I also want to meet you"? Like, I was taught just to, like,
Right.
sit back and don't bother people. And
Have a drink. Yeah.
yeah, and so it was like reprogramming my brain and also teaching others how to be like, no, what you have to say matters. And the biggest thing is, like, hospital or politics seems daunting, and it is. It is daunting. And honestly, in New York City, and this is, I'll probably get yelled at for this, but, like, I think it's purposefully daunting, right? You have
Mm.
an
Yeah.
assembly member and a councilwoman and a Brooklyn borough president, and then a mayor and a governor, like all of these, a community board, a bid, and then you have Department of Transportation, Department of Health, Department of Environmental Protection. Like, I can't even list how many departments there are, and you don't know who to
Mm.
go to when you have a problem, and
Right.
sometimes it feels like that on purpose because you're like, well, who do I talk
Mm-hmm.
to? I don't know. All right, well, I guess I'm just going to give up because I can't
Right.
even find the person.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and my biggest thing is, like, you're not inconvenient. They're public servants. That is the definition of their
Yeah.
job. They're supposed to be
They're at
serving
your service.
us. And I think the problem
Right.
is, these campaign, we're not going to get into all the problems with government, but because that's another whole
Right.
story. But they are supposed to be here to protect us. And we shouldn't feel like an
Mm-hmm.
inconvenience to ask for them to help
Yeah.
us. And it's about
Mm-hmm.
reprogramming that. And I know it's, like, daunting, but even just sending an email to your council person, that used to scare me. Like, oh, I have to tell them to
Right.
please oppose this bill that would allow Grubhub to up our fees by this much. That would scare me. And now it's just like it's become this natural thing. And I think people just have to take that first step to do it. And that is the absolute hardest one. Like, you don't have to be going, to city council and testifying. It'd be great because we need more people that will do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just more about, like, starting and, like, dipping your toe in. And then you kind of can't unsee what you see once your toe is in. And that just naturally usually activates people to get involved. We started as this, like, little,
What do you mean? Like, what is the thing that you see that you can't unsee? What do you mean by that?
just the way, again, I'm probably gonna get myself into trouble, but I don't care. The way that our government is supposed to protect us, the way that it's marketed,
Mm-hmm.
we're here for you, we're going to do these things, and then they don't. And that's just not okay. It's not okay to
Yeah.
see that the way we were regulated in COVID. And this isn't about, whether you believed in COVID or whether you didn't, or it's not. This is a nonpartisan issue. We all know COVID's real, but it's more about the way it was handled, from the government, and the way that
Mm-hmm.
hospitality was policed, and just seeing the inequities and seeing the regulation, of bars and restaurants. And that's how it started. And as we pulled out of COVID, I'm on the executive board of the Hospitality Alliance now. I'm on the Mayor's Small Business
Mm-hmm.
Council. I am an active member, I'm an executive member of my bid. I'm looking to get on my community board for my bar. And, like, it's a lot. And a lot of it's tiring and
Totally.
stressful. But once you see the way things are run, you're like, I have to be in this because if I don't say something, no one's going to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's something as nuanced as, like, hospitality. You Most people in government, like I said, haven't done this. They need someone to tell them how it is. I mean,
Right.
we had a next mayor.
So did you, I just have one
Yeah, go.
question about the squeaky wheel
Mm-hmm.
needing grease. Once you became comfortable, or I guess like, do you feel like you got some grease? with the COVID stuff, or was it more just like, fuck, this is like nobody's gonna say anything. I just got to keep going. Like, did you have like some positive
I mean,
stuff come out of that initial work?
yeah, we got drinks to go passed. I
Yeah,
testified for drinks to go. I testified for outdoor dining to change the text amendment that allowed them to, keep street seating. I
right.
so yes, absolutely. I mean, we had
Yeah,
little victories. We got the city liquor license tax. I mean, it was only lifted for 1 year. We wanted more, but we got that lifted. We did manage to block Grubhub from increasing their fees for now. They have a lot of money, so that's probably going to change, honestly. But even if that does change, we've brought Grubhub and DoorDash to the table, so now they're not just going to get whatever they want. At least we're going to get some
right.
negotiations, and like maybe bars and restaurants that use Grubhub will get their customers' information. Because right now, if somebody orders from you, you don't get their email or their phone number. So you can't even market to them outside of
Yeah,
that platform. Now that we've kind of held them to the fire, when we come back for negotiations about that fee cap, they're going to have to give us something. And,
yeah.
we might not get everything we want, but you get more, and you get way more than just
Mm-hmm.
sitting still and being quiet, you know?
Just being like, well, I guess it's going up again. It's another
Yeah.
year.
I mean,
Yeah, I guess just like it's just important to enumerate the things that you've gotten done because you're talking about like how hard it is and how much of a pain in the ass and how much of your life you're spending on this, but
but it's so
it's
rewarding
like
too.
you've gotten results.
It truly
Yeah.
is. It's worth it. If it wasn't worth it, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it at all, but it is worth it. And even just helping one place, like the way that, we got in contact with the Hospitality Alliance and the Office of Nightlife is that bars were messaging Save NYC bars and they're saying, just got inspected by DOT and they said we were fine, but that now this other agency is saying that I have to move my whole 5,000 pound structure 1 foot. What do I do? And we get the yeah, don't even get me started. So we get these emails to the alliance and to the nightlife office, and we start communicating with them, and we start connecting these bars with these very specific problems to them, and then all of a sudden I'm nominated to be on the Hospitality Alliance, and it's just like, um, but it felt good when you got that email back that was like the bar is like, thank you so much, we figured it out. And
Mm-hmm.
we
Nice.
are in hospitality. We're in the business of taking care of people. So if we can't take care of each other, like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
So it's,
How
oh, go ahead.
like where do you see I think I asked you this before, but it's like it I subscribe to the New York Times, so it definitely like this might be my own like bias that I'm seeing, but it felt like a lot was happening there that what like it was happening there first in terms of like the drinks to go and like the it felt like you guys were like ahead of the curve on some of this stuff. Is that your sense
Like the Hospitality Alliance?
being there? Like New York was like getting these regulations out the door during COVID more quickly than like other places. Was that your sense?
Um, are we talking about regulations or like bills that are passing in our favor?
Talking about like the outdoor dining, the drinks to go, like during the height of COVID. Like it felt like that was happening there faster than I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I don't know that whatever happened
I
here for that kind of
I
stuff.
think um yes and no.
I guess I'm not asking if that's true or not. I'm asking about like your perception. Like, were you just like, okay, this is feeling kind of good, or was it just like, Jesus Christ, let's go here?
I think that's kind of a loaded thing. Both. Some things,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I will say, it always felt like one steps forward, three steps back during COVID. All right, you can have drinks to go,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to do food. And then it was like chicken wings aren't food, and you're just like, oh, for Christ's sake, like you have to butcher an animal. How are these not food? Like it. So maybe things. I feel like things might have come out quicker, but the regulation on it always felt like you'd get a positive and then you'd get three negatives. And that's why every day
Mm-hmm.
I wake up and I'm like, I'm grateful for this. because you had to find that little tiny speck of sparkle to be like, oh, thank God we can be open today just to keep going. Um,
Yeah.
but I know that, like, I think Boston had a really hard time with drinks to go. I don't think they were, I think certain cities weren't
Mm,
allowed. So if you're looking at as a spectrum, I think we were lucky in some aspects. You know, we were the first to close, we
hmm
were one of the last cities to open. Um, so they
Yeah.
had to activate because
Right.
everything would have been lost if they didn't.
Yeah. Totally.
So
Do you feel do you feel that because of COVID, all of the like the advocacy grassroots in like that you're involved with, like do you feel like it has solidified and grown stronger and like gotten things into a good place going forward?
I think for now, you know, in this industry, uh, there are always things that can be better. You know, it's like think about hospitality 20 years ago, where you know no one talked about sexual harassment, no one talked about you know being
Yeah.
paid off the
Right.
books. Like we, you know, everything is changing always. I definitely think that because of COVID, at least in New York City, were brought to the table a lot more. I definitely think that's because of efforts of people like, you know, Andrew Ridgie and, you know, our old nightlife director, um, where it was, you know, it was being talked about constantly. And it was because they were seeking out the New York Times and all of these outlets and constantly talking about it. Um, I think it's great.
hmm
You know, take this for what you will. I don't, again, I'm not going to speak to like other things that our mayor does, but our mayor is a pro hospitality dude. And guess what? So is
hmm
our governor. And from what I've been told about past political situations, never in at least, I guess, the last memorable past has there been a mayor and a governor at the same time that has been pro hospitality, which is such a big deal.
Nice.
Um, you know, recently with all these asylum seekers trying to get jobs, Andrew Ridgie was testifying to get people work permits because
Work permits.
hospitality is
Yeah.
still needing humans. And so while that may not
hmm
be a, you know, people don't think of asylum seekers and hospitality, that is a huge thing. You know, our hands are in everything. We need workers. These people need jobs, and we can give them those jobs. And we can take the burden off of the state and
hmm
off of the city by giving these people jobs and getting them, you know, out of these shelters. So it's not just
Totally.
this
Or off the fucking sidewalk.
ser-
Jesus, the pictures are awful.
exactly. So it's not just a hospitality issue, it's also an immigration issue. Like we're in everything. We're
Yeah.
feeding these people. People are donating meals to these people from their restaurants. Um,
hmm
it's just such a huge spider web of effect that the hospitality industry has on other parts of government. And I think that at least New
Right.
York State and City is really starting to, it feels like they're starting to see that. Or maybe in the
hmm
past they didn't, or we were an afterthought. And I
Right.
will allude to
hmm
our a past mayor that made a comment that said that, you know, during COVID that dining out was for the rich. Well, maybe so, Mister Whoever you wherever you live, but I live in Bed-Stuy, and I can tell you
hmm
that people going out in Bed-Stuy probably aren't super rich. And also, you're missing the point. It's
Yeah.
not about who we feed; it's about who we employ.
hmm
So, and that's not the rich. We don't employ the rich. Women, people of
Yeah.
color,
No kidding.
queer folks, like that's who we employ. Immigrants.
hmm
So,
So, what are you?